And welcome guys to another little tutorial. Now today we are going to discuss how we are going to do our body animations. Now as you've done before, and this is kind of a little bit different for me, is I'm going to write it as we talk about it anyway, because well, having it just speaking and everything's fine, but I'd much rather just show you how I would write it right off the bat anyway. So we're going to go and we're going to look at our slot thing. And I'm going to make a folder. And I'm going to call it slot anim. Because, well, this deals with animations and stuff like that. And we may want to change it, and it's important for organizational purposes anyway. So we're going to call this body animator. It's close enough for a word. I probably didn't spell it right, but well. And we're going to go and take this, and we're going to put this on the main. And the reason why I'm doing it the main like this is because we're just going to oh, come on, do the compiling, blah, blah, blah. Come on. I know it's there. There we go. And I don't have very many things. Private. Oh, yeah, yes. Okay. So now it'll let me do it. Okay, sweet. Now get out of debug mode. I don't know, like, if you ever go up here and you see debug, normal, lock, max, close tab, add tab, usually I run a lot of times in debug mode because it shows private stuff. Private variables that hasn't been told to hide in the inspector, and you get to see a lot more information like your instance ID, your identifier, local rotation, things like that. Okay, so it's just kind of one of those things. Alright, and is trigger, X trigger. Now if I go to normal, it takes this stuff off. So if you ever wonder how I got all this extra stuff in the inspector, that's the reason. You don't have to do it, it's just one of those things that I do. So just saying. Okay, so we're going to go into here. Alright, and this is for body animator. So it's going to be an animator type series. Okay. Well, we also have to think about certain things that we do, okay? Variables and other types of stuff. Now, in this stuff, we're definitely going to have a animator. Yes, animator. We'll just call this state animation. We'll just call it why not, right? And for my sakes and stuff, I am going to make sure that I put it this way. And this tells me not to modify this anywhere else in my game. Okay? Because that's how my little code brain thing goes. You know, it's a signal to me. Alright? Now, I want this to be private, but I want this to be in the inspector as well, because, well, I don't want to sit there and do a get component right off the start. I don't want to But in the start method, I'm going to go into here and go if anim equals null. In case I didn't fill it in, we're going to do and equals get component animator this is a function, so we have to call it like one. Okay, so if it's null, we go get it. Okay, and that's great because we can always forget stuff or forget to put it in there, but we also want a message too. So we're going to go with debug dot log because it's not really an error, it's more like, hey, you forgot to do something. So, hey, you didn't do the body animator. So my spelling's a little bit more correct. Please fill this in. Okay. Boom, boom, boom. Make it nice and noisy, stuff like that. We could do log error and make it show up in red and stuff, but it's kind of one of those. Do we have to? So now, for our animator, we are probably going to need a float, horizontal values, right? We'll probably need a float, vertical values. Okay, and I want these to be written like this. Okay, and I will give them default values right off the bat. That way, if you don't give things default values, a lot of times you'll get this unassigned reference, what's it called? Values are not used, something in the console, which it doesn't need to do it, but for some reason it just doesn't recognize sometimes when you put things in the constructor and change it around. So we're going to need horizontal and vertical values. We'll probably need some type of aim value, which will probably be another float. So we'll put it 0f. Okay. And what this will represent is our up and down motion. Well, no, we don't actually need that, do we? No. For this example, we only need the horizontal and vertical values. We may want a turn value. Turn 0 equals 0f because it's a float. Okay. So we have this here. Alright, that's awesome. So in our update, we are probably going to need something of the sort. Well, there's two things about this. We don't really need an update because our float, well, actually we probably will, or we'll get an error, and I forget what the error is. It pulls an error because of Stack Overflow. And what happens is this update is called in two places, so it gives a Stack Overflow error and it just crashes your program. The reason why we have values up here, and then we're going to do constructors of public, we might actually change the way our constructors work around for horizontal and vertical because of two reasons. Horizontal and vertical both get used at the same time. They always do. I mean, calling them both at the same time. So if I actually really do think about it, we can go into our event system here. And remember how I put this vertical and horizontal? We can therefore just get rid of this, which I'm not going to get rid of this, but what I'm going to do is copy it in here, and we are going to change it to H and V. Okay, float vertical, we're not going to have right first, because remember in the name H and V. So we're going to do a horizontal first, okay? Yeah. And we change this to here, because copy and pasting is so much better. And I'm lazy in certain spots. So we actually have to change this. So I'm going to put H and V again. Now what this is going to give us is both values at the same time. So we don't have to call these separately. So we will have to change stuff in our scripts, which is no big deal. I mean, it's nothing, right? Go down here, instead of doing this, we will be doing and we could probably leave this in here if we really wanted to, but I'm not going to because it's just one of those things. If H and V, which should never be null, now I really think about it, but for the most part we'll do this check. We can actually just get rid of this check altogether. Now we have H and V, and then we have two constructors. Okay, horizontal, we make sure are done first. Then we go into the vertical. Okay, I know it's a small refactor, but it's really going to make it a lot easier because instead of two calls, we go into one. And most of the time when you do horizontal, you also do vertical as well. So in here, I'm going to, oh, and another thing, yeah, this was silly, but I had to take the else if out of this because one would work and the other one wouldn't, which was kind of goofy. So now I probably don't have to have any of this, and I can go else if. But I'm going to leave it in here for now. And we can change our other scripts accordingly pretty soon anyway. And the only one that actually does it, I think, is this one anyway. So we have to change our horizontal and vertical around, which isn't that big of a deal, but it's just one of those things that you just have to do. So with that in mind, we can go into our what one? Oh, our full body animator. And I might want to override this. Yes, actually we will probably make this an overridable. Maybe later though. But in that case, public virtual. I'm gonna call it get void. Don't forget the void. Get values. This will take a float h and a float v. Okay, and all we're going to do is when this is called, we're going to change these values up here. Now, remember how I said this right here? This is a flag for me to only change these values in this script right here. In other scripts, I don't want to change them. So if I make this public and I go looking, this flags me and tells me not to change this in another script, to change it in this script and this script alone. So if I have to change this in this script, this tells me, hey, this might have to be an overridable class, an abstract class, and then we go and change it as needed, not when we don't. And I hope that makes sense to you. So we've got h values, right? So we'll go in here and go h values equals h. Okay? Not that, you silly boy. H. Okay? Hate when that happens. V values equals p. Okay? So we have that. It'll change the values up here. So what we do now is, since we have the values and we've changed them in the constructor, this runs every single frame. Okay, this is like an update. But the reason why I won't use this as it is, if we do an animation, we tell the animator, hey, do a fire value. Well, if I do this as an update and change it around for the fire, I have to add a bool, this, and this makes this very, very not usable for other stuff. I want this to be flexible because of how it gets us. And this running right here, this is like nothing. This is super fast and only does two things, and there you go. I don't have to put mathf dot anything whatsoever. Horizontal and vertical by themselves only go -1 or +1. So clamping it in a range, it doesn't matter. If we wanted to do a running versus walking and stuff, we would clamp the value somewhere in here for since our running is a bool, right? Speed bool, right? Yeah, it's a bool. Yes or no question. Then we could easily have this right here actually be, we can actually have this assigned to the full body animator. We can use this right here to call it, or we can use the event system by itself. It doesn't really matter. See, that's the reason why I'm going with this type of system versus something else. Even though this gets called every frame, I don't want this to be an update, because of what if we do not want horizontal and vertical to be updated, like in a pause menu or something, and my watch has to go eat stuff crazy. But what if we, want to pause the horizontal and vertical? Then we have to do it in the event system and clog our event system up. But maybe we're using the horizontal and vertical someplace else, right? Like horizontal and vertical, when we're capturing that type of information, can still come from the event system. But the problem is, if we hard code it in something crazy like this, then it might be a problem. And two, oh yeah, if I pause it in, like up here in the event system right here, if I use this as an update for, just go, hey, and make a custom update that updates this, this function becomes heavier because it's telling this to work. Updates like this that are empty are like nothing. If they have like small things in them, you'll hardly see a performance difference. And plus, if you ever debug them, like debug in the profiler, for Unity, it'll be a lot easier to find this update than to find this, than to call for it and search through the stacks. And two, having an update from here or this reaps no benefits whatsoever. The only time this is necessary is if you're doing throttling. And what do I mean by throttling? Just basically like we do with bullets and timers. Okay, like this. Fire time, and we're subtracting it like this. Hey, we're doing this. Hey, if we get to, if it's below 0, we push out a function. Okay? That's the benefit of it. Anything other than that, it's kind of useless. And, this is the next stuff that we're going to be working with anyway. So we need to get that stuff working. So in our body animation, our purposes, we only need horizontal and vertical. So right now we have an anim dot set float. So we set the float, which is the ID of it. What do we want to set? Horizontal values. Okay. Now we can also have, oh, actually, yes, that's right. You're right. We can do it by a string. We can do it by an int. The ID is just what it's going to be called in the animator. And then we do the actual float values. That's right. It's been a while since I worked with the animator in that way. Most of the time anymore, I do a dot play, and I do this way. It's stop, playback, stuff like that. I don't usually work with these set floats too much anymore. and work with the state machine. I pretty much almost bypass it anymore. I'm only doing these as the strings right now. Actually, we should probably make a string up here. Public string each value's name. Okay. And then below here we do an public string name. Okay? And what we'll do instead of that, we'll go down here and we'll replace this h value thingy, a hard-coded thing, for something a little less hard-cody. Hard-cody. Ah, yep. Patent that. I want the copyright on that name. Ah. Alright. So we got that, and we will need a float value, which we're going to do RV value. Okay? Now there's also damping that you can add and stuff like that, which we might actually. Oh, this is another overload into the stuff. Damp time, float delta time. But let's go with that for now, because this is just to illustrate how you can use the event system to go into the full body animator. So we have this h values, okay? Now, the thing about this that I am going to instruct you about is there is quite a few other things that you can do. And this might be one of those functions that you want. Now I'm going to make this look funky. This is going to be an anim. And anim override controller. Okay? Because this could be a functionality that you want. And I'm pretty... And we'll get back to this one right here because I want to do a little bit more how you say, more research on it. But what this is an override for basically animations inside the animation controller. So you might want to call something like that. And I'm not too for sure on how to use it in code like that. Actually, let me give me a second. Wish I had a pause on this recording program. That kind of stinks. Is it that easy? Actually, it could be that easy. What it actually says is anim dot runtime animation controller equals override. And that's it. This might be something that you want because let's say you have a ton of weapons, okay, and you don't want to make this messy looking controller. You know how a mechanism looks and everything else. You'll have this state, this state, this state, this state, this state. Then you'll have to do the transitions and everything else. Well, what if you just did a animational state that did nothing but that specific weapon? Okay, let's say you have an AR-15. You've done a mechanism, whole controller and everything else for the AR-15, and you have perfect animations and everything else. And then you want to add something to it. Well, then it becomes a problem because somehow you have to do some type of indexing. You may have to change the walking stuff and everything else. A runtime animation override controller is basically for if you do not want to jumble up your animation controller with other garbage. So we can use a method, something like this. I haven't tested this, so it may not work as I want to, but that's what it's for. It goes in and replaces the controller that it's using with a different controller. It basically overwrites it and changes things around the way you want them to. Now that might be something that you want. It may not be. I don't know. But for the most part, you possibly, it quite possibly could be exactly what you need. Alright. Now I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm not saying that it's, just fine and dandy. Okay. Now, before, when I said when there was running, well, here you go. Here's a prime example of bool running. And it equals false right off the bat. Okay. Now, in our animation controller, we can go and do something like if running equals true, then we do this, right? We do this stuff. And then we can have an else, which this is specifically designed under the assumption that we are not running. So we'll go up here. And we can go on our values, we can go divided by 2. Divided by 2. And that's it. And this is presuming that you are using your horizontal and vertical for the full motion. Okay? Basically, your float value, if it's in half, it will only go up to the maximum of your maximum walking speed. Okay? If it's the full value, then it will go all the way directly to 1. This will get it to go to the maximum of 0.5. This will go the full 1. Okay? And this also counts backwards as well. So if you're going backwards, like backwards, then it will do the same exact thing. Okay? So that's how you can do that. But we also have to think about, hey, public string run name. And we don't want this to be modified, so I put my little flag there. See, it's little things like that that make sure that you know what you're doing when you're looking at stuff. You know, like, and the easy part about this one is quite simple. We go down here, yeah, and then set bool, and it's just a bool, but we do need our run name, which is our string ID in there. You could also probably use some other stuff, but you know, it's the mechanism system. I mean, what can you do, right? And since this is true, I'm going to automatically go and set this to our running. Now, you might be confused on why would you set this to the running bool? Why don't you go directly to true? Because we know it's true. Well, here's the problem with it. If you go into here and you have this true and you have this true, when this cycles and pulls it, when I let go of my button, it will only transmit the bool value in a single frame. We don't have it where it constantly is throwing the running bool out, you know, every single frame. So if I put this to true and then put this false down here, we can have, when this runs, this might override what the value needs to be. So we always just do the constant value. And the reason why we, my biggest thing is I want it to rely on this value right here, because I'm controlling it by a constructor in our event system. So in no other, because this is an event, this value cannot be overwritten by any other script besides this one. This value will be a constant. There's no other script that I have to worry about that can change this value. And if it's the wrong type of value, I know it's not coming out of my event system. It has to be going into our script, the thing that's using the animator. And this is also the reason why we want it to be an update, because this is kind of the thing that you want in a constant update. This is actually relatively cheap right here. These calls are relatively cheap. The thing that's costing you in a system like this is the actual animation system itself. The animation system itself, I think, is a little heavy, somewhat. The legacy system is a little cheap. Is a little cheaper. And two, also the reason why we have this values and we're not just assigning them directly from another script or something crazy like that, or a component or elsewhere, is quite simple. If we want to use this in any other type of project, the values are all here. It just requires Animator, us to fill this stuff in, and it constantly does this. If we don't have these values in the controller itself, well, guess what? That's no big deal. Now we actually could put this in a constructor right here. And we could put this in the constructor as well. But it's like I said, if this right here isn't assigned, and we still need the update for maybe whatever reason, then we could run into an issue. And two, well, the main reason why I like this script better than some of the other things that I've written is because this script is dependent. I could take this elsewhere. All I need to do is make sure it's got a horizontal, vertical name, and a bool for running. Bam, there you go. It's not dependent on this project. You can take this into another project. Sure, you'd have to find a way to run these values, you know, your horizontal and vertical, but that would be nothing to write. I mean, come on. That would be nothing to write. You can actually probably write a script to fill these in for you, and because that's basically what we're doing now. But here's another thing. So we do need a constructor for our running values. Okay, so let's get our constructor for running values. Public virtual void get running, and this is a bool. We're going to put is run. Running equals is running. And there you go. Now, like I said, you could always go down here and put something like that. Instead of is running, you would put this value, and there you go. This is basically the same thing. Okay? This is basically the same thing. You're taking this value and shoving it in there. You know, you wouldn't use that, but basically the same thing right here. Which this may be what you want, but it's not what I want for my project. But it all depends. It really depends on what you want to do for your project. You could do one or the other. Doesn't really matter. But I'm not going to be using it in this series like that. I don't want to assign directly like that. I want to assign in here, in my update. Because I can easily see the problem with this is A, when it comes to my animator, let's say my program starts and the default value is true. So I'm sitting here running, but I'm not actually running. So if I want to fix that, then I have to hold shift and then take shift and, you know, do its thing again. Basically cycle the value in order to fix it. Now would be a bug. That's why I use a constructor, a default value, and all that good stuff. I completely get around all that other stuff. Now we do have a term, which I don't know. I don't actually have a term. I don't. Turning is actually pretty hard to calculate. You have to have your stuff actually. You have to have really good animations and stuff like that, which I probably won't. But all you do is to set the value is do this, set float. And two, I won't be using root animation, so root motion, I mean. What could be another thing that we could possibly need? Well, I don't know. Well, now that I actually am thinking about this, is let's give it a space, and we're going to do another serializable field. Which I may not use this, but it's going to be here. A anim override controller. This is serializable, but I'm going to make this, I believe an array goes here on this scripting language. Yes. And this will be override controllers. And we're going to have an integer. And we're going to basically do all this stuff the same way. Except instead of doing that, we're going to do an int. And we need the name for this. Yes. And this will make it where we only have to call an integer from another script. We would do get component, body animator, and we would throw an integer in there, which might be useful later on. We don't have to use this at all, but it could be useful. And I don't think there's anything else that we may need for our body animation thing besides assigning the values, which this is actually going to be really easy. We're basically doing this stuff. We'll just copy this part because I'm lazy in some way. Body animation. We're always going to do this, so we are going to have this get component. I don't like that it's got a small thing. It kind of weirds me out. Temp event. Plus equals this. Oh, why do I always do that? Dot H what did I call that again? This. Bloop. And there we go. That's it. That's the one call major that we need. And we'll go in here, temp event dot where what is running plus equals this dot, would it be that bool body animator? No, I don't believe so. Yeah, it's get running. Bam, there we go. Full body animation, right there you go. Well, not full, but it's body animating. It will get a horizontal, vertical, and running. And that's mostly all we need right there. Bam. Now, in our weapon class itself, we don't exactly have to do certain things, okay? And what I mean by certain things is we don't have to call this or this. It's just a constructor that I made just so that you guys can understand. You can make these constructors do one specific thing for your full body, have different overloads for it, and they can be the same thing. They're just multiple ways that you can do the pretty much the same functionality. Instead of, the only reason I did the integer like this is quite simple. If I have a weapon and I only want to do an int and not this, then I can basically fill out stuff here, you know, do whatever's necessary, and there you go. It's bam bam done. Doesn't matter. For this to be an overridable class where we get certain things, and you know, all these have to be converted to the publics, but for the most part, you know, here it is. That's it. Running and horizontal and vertical values. You feed it into the animator, and bam, you're done. And we use the our little event class and our body animation. That's it. I mean, to take this into a different game, it would be simple. All you'd have to do is change this to get component and change the way the constructors work around a little bit. You'd pretty much have a script for a different game. A lot of people will hard code these in and stuff, and it's okay. What our problem is, we have more than one class, okay? Secondly, not all of our characters can run, okay? In our heavy gunner, I want him to only be able to walk. So when the event system doesn't when our light gunner, our basic gunner, when we go to our heavy gun guy, this isn't going to be assigned. It's going to be null. And the reason why we null it out is because it's going to stay with its default value of it's not walking. And this can't be thrown into any other class. And because the event never gets subscribed on our heavy gun, we don't have to worry about the rest of our classes. like in our gun, like our gun state right here, I have a value for walking. What? Walking? Oh yeah, he's truly walking. Okay, yeah. That's fine. Or maybe we'll have to change that in a little. But I'll have the default values of, hey, he's walking. Doesn't matter. And two, because this is driven by the event system, when I assign an animator to this and we start animating our guns and all that good stuff, I do not have to worry about messing with values in here. It'll all be taken care of by the event system. So the running state, I don't have to worry about it. Aiming, all that. Everything is done by the event system. I mean, aiming, everybody can aim, but if I have a weapon that has no aiming whatsoever, all I'd have to do is come down here, and when I have this aiming position thing, all I gotta do, bam, not that, boom, there we go. No aiming whatsoever. Doesn't matter, don't care. And that gun now has no aiming functionality. It still gets called by the event system, but the functionality for the weapon to be able to aim is therefore dead. Done. So I can disable it right at the weapon. Now the walking thing, I don't want to do that kind of stuff to it because calling this function is very, very easy on performance. It basically hits nothing. Alright? But I have other people that can use a rifle like this. So I don't want to disable the functionality here. Big no-no. The aiming? Yeah. Well, actually no, the aiming would be bad too. Ooh. How could I decon? Now that actually brings a good question. I never really thought about that. Interesting thought. How could I disable a single weapon from... Actually, no. The aiming wouldn't be like that. That's completely false. False. Forget. Well, the reason why I say disable it from here is because of guns like a minigun. Can you zoom in with a scope with a minigun? No. So you just cross out this functionality and don't worry about it for a minigun. Obviously, for a rifle or something like that, you can aim, but there's a lot of guns that you can't aim with, you know. I mean, you could do a pistol, you know, but a revolver might not make sense. You know, individual weapons, yes. Character classes would be hard. Actually, character classes would be easy. If you wanted a class that cannot aim whatsoever, like aim, all you do is go in here and not have this function right here. And that class can never aim. There would be no aiming functionality for them whatsoever, which might be a buff for you. Hey, they can't aim, but guess what? They may get ×2 extra damage because they can't aim. It might be a buff for you. I don't know. No, you just... My goal is just to show you how to make a more of a pluggable API for yourself. So I hope this helps you out, and I'm going to save this because this is actually the way I wanted it written anyway. So I know it's not much of a video. It's probably going to go up probably Sunday or Tuesday, somewhere around there. Oh, and we may want to change the way our horizontal and stuff goes. And make sure I get no errors. Yep. No errors. It's happy. Oh, the other thing that I wanted to address. This running right here, you don't have to have this in the event system. You don't. You don't have to have the event system tell it to do the running stuff. Okay? You can actually just make the running stuff in the character controller class itself. Have the character controller class do the running event stuff. Okay? I just put it in the event system because I want a central place to do running, jumping, and all that stuff. But you know, jumping might be a thing that you want next too, so. But we'll get into that. That's no big deal. No big deal whatsoever. So, I hope you liked this video. If not, then, you know, you have right to your own opinion. And thank you very much for watching. This is Wardon over and out.